Is it possible to have the same personality in Spanish as you do in English? Is that even something that you should want to have? As someone who learned Spanish as an adult, I used to get so frustrated when I couldn't express something in Spanish the same way I do in English. I felt less confident, less sarcastic, less willing to interject my opinion in conversations, and honestly, I just felt not myself. In this video, I'm going to talk about whether or not you can even have the same personality in your second language as you do in your first, and whether that should even be the goal. Hola, ¿qué tal? I'm Dominique, and I've been learning Spanish as an adult for over 15 years. After growing up in California and living in places like Barcelona, Madrid, and Mexico City, I've developed a really clear understanding of the differences between Castilian Spanish, Latin American Spanish, and even the Spanish that is spoken here in the US. I now support other native English-speaking adults build a strong and practical connection to Spanish in a way that fits into their real lives. In working with hundreds of other Spanish learners, I found that there are 3 types of students who really struggle with this personality conundrum when they're learning Spanish. Let's see if one of them fits you. The first person is someone who is sociable and outgoing in their first language. They like to interact and talk with other people. In Spanish, they may have to take a step back in conversations and become more of an observer instead of being at the center of the action, which can make them feel like they're not being their true selves. The second type of person is someone who is witty and sarcastic and always cracking jokes in their first language. The problem is that most jokes and witty comments like these take years, if not decades, to be able to use in your second language because they're so nuanced and even region dependent sometimes. And the phrases can be so specialized that you may learn them, but then you have to learn how to appropriately interject with them in a conversation to get the laugh or to get the reaction that you're looking for. In other words, being witty or sarcastic in Spanish is an advanced skill, which is going to take a long time to develop. The third type of person is a person who likes a good debate. It's common that the things that we like to debate about or have really strong opinions about require an advanced knowledge of vocabulary. So it can feel almost painful to be listening to a conversation and not be able to step in and add your opinion. I even have some students that if we're on a Zoom call together to practice Spanish, but we touch on a subject that they're super passionate about, I can see it eating away inside of them that they cannot express all their opinions and ideas and emotions about that topic. Sometimes they'll even apologize real quick, switch to English for 30 seconds just to tell me all that's bottled up inside of them in their first language, just so that they can feel heard. So specifically with this third type of person, I hear them share stories about feeling that they're left out of conversations and they're not able to be their true selves. Well, I'm just gonna come out and say my opinion on this entire subject, and that is, I don't think people are ever quite the same in both languages. Yep, I don't think it's possible to be the same person in English and in Spanish. Even after 15 years of learning this language and exploring many different Spanish-speaking cultures, I still don't feel like I'm the same person in English as I am in Spanish. But I also see this whole becoming fluent in Spanish thing as an opportunity to reinvent yourself, if that's what you want. You see, there's a lot of freedom to being new to Spanish because you get to choose who you want to be, what you want to sound like. Your accent, your slang, your cadence, even your tone of voice in Spanish is a choice that you get to make. If you want to speak a Colombian Spanish, a Guatemalan Spanish, an Argentinian Spanish, you get to choose. With your first language, you didn't get to choose whether you grew up in Boston or the Midwest or Northern California. The way that you speak, your mannerisms, the way that you interact with people is wrapped up in how you learned the language when you were growing up. But I can tell you from personal experience learning Spanish as an adult And first living in Spain and later Mexico, I have absolutely had a hand in choosing what slang I use, what vocabulary I use, even down to my cadence and my tone of voice. All of that has been a fine tuning of my Spanish in a way that fits the personality that I want to have in Spanish, the person that I want to come across as in Spanish. Now, continuing on with other ways that you can adapt your personality and change your personality in Spanish. I mean, if you want to be more romantic, more gentle, even use more vulgar language if you want in Spanish, that is your choice. Like, for example, in English, you may be very direct because English is the language that we use for business and tech, so it's meant to be that way. But in Spanish, because it's a romance language, you have so many more options for vocabulary and sentence structure, so you can start layering a variety of ways to express your emotions in ways that you never can in English. I mean, just off the top of my head, I can think of like 10 different ways to tell someone that I care about them or that I love them in Spanish. Taking this further into my own life, I think about my husband and I who speak English and Spanish to each other. When it's a conversation that is more loving and gentle, we tend to speak Spanish to each other. But when it's about scheduling or the dogs or the budget, more of this business as usual conversation, we speak English because it's more direct. I'm going to bring up a few more friends that came to mind. One is Chelsea, who grew up in Sacramento but has spent the better part of the last 15 years in Guatemala running her travel agency. And you can imagine Chelsea, Caucasian, blue eyes, brown hair, and yet she is as Guatemalan as any other Guatemalan that I've ever met. From her vocabulary to her mannerisms to the way that she interacts with people, she has created this entire persona in Spanish that is just as much a part of her as it is her English self. And actually, they're kind of fusing together more and more the longer that I know her. It almost makes her a fuller person. It's almost like whole life she was missing this other half of herself that she found and has obviously developed, but now it's made her this whole being. I think in a way I always felt like that too, growing up as a monolingual English speaker, that there was always a part of me that was missing that needed to be developed and discovered, and that was my Spanish self that I've been developing over the last 15 years. So this is a real thing that happens to people, a real thing that happens to Spanish learners, and if you're constantly trying to be the person that you are in English, you're missing out on the greater person that you could be in Spanish, the parts of yourself that you can discover and grow and develop. Another friend also comes to mind, Liz, who is from Chicago but has lived in Mexico City for the last 15 years ago. Everyone's done something in Spanish for the last 15 years. Maybe I'm just using that as a ballpark number. I think I'm getting older because everything feels like 10 or 15 years. But anyways, you can imagine Liz, also Caucasian, freckles, red hair, green eyes. And I tell you, when she speaks, to her mannerisms, to her vocabulary, to her slang, you would have thought that she was born and raised in Mexico City. Now, she's learned Spanish as an adult like me and you, but she's developed this entire new person, part of herself, which I find fascinating. So let's get reflective for a moment. What if Spanish could be the driver to help you grow into a new version of yourself? Maybe in Spanish, you could be softer, kinder, warmer, more compassionate. Or maybe in Spanish, you could be more extroverted, more outgoing, and take chances with talking with strangers. Maybe in Spanish, you're less sarcastic, but you could be more romantic or more poetic. I fully believe that learning Spanish is more than just learning a language. It's so much more than just grammar structures and conjugation tables and vocabulary. It's about seeing the world through a different lens and discovering parts of yourself that you didn't even know were there. So I want you to reframe your mindset that you're less you in Spanish. You're just a different version of you, and that's okay. Hey, if you've enjoyed this real talk about learning Spanish as an adult, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit subscribe to help my small channel grow and reach the right people.